My stepson thought I hadn't returned yet. He was calling my wife. Yes, the job's done. The brake line's been severed cleanly. We'll meet at his funeral tomorrow. I didn't confront him. I went silent, called a tow truck, and had the entire vehicle delivered to his biological father's house. Here, a gift from your son. I think this was truly the most special gift. It opened the door to my own battles. This story began in a dark garage at 11:30 p.m. the moment I heard those words. If something tells you to stay and listen, trust that instinct. That's what saved my life. Where are you watching from? Comment right now. The bag of fried chicken from Ingles was still warm in my hand when I heard my stepson's voice cut through the darkness of the garage. Yeah, I already cut the brake line. I froze. The paper bag crinkled as my fingers tightened. Through the crack in the side door, I could see the blue glow of a phone screen illuminating Trevor's face. He was standing near my workbench, shoulders relaxed, head tilted like he was discussing the weather. See you at his funeral tomorrow. The words hit me like cold water. For a second, my whole body forgot how to move. The garage smelled the way it always did, motor oil, concrete dust, that sour bite that never leaves. December air leaked through the gaps, sharp enough to sting. I'd stopped at Ingles on the way home because I thought stupidly that maybe we could have one normal night. A peace offering, the kind you make when a house has been tense for months and nobody wants to say it out loud. Now I was standing there holding fried chicken while my stepson talked about my funeral. You sure about this? That was Deborah's voice, faint tinny coming through the phone speaker. Deborah, my wife of 11 years. She didn't sound shocked. She didn't sound angry. She sounded cautious. Yeah, Trevor said, tone flat. It's done. He won't make it to Monday. He chuckled. There was a pause. I waited for Deborah to say my name, to say stop, to say anything that sounded like a conscience. She didn't. Instead, she exhaled, and it sounded like relief. Tomorrow, she said. Just be careful. My stomach dropped. My boot scuffed the concrete just once, just a scrape. Trevor's head snapped toward the door. I didn't breathe. My chest hurt from holding it in. He didn't come looking. After a beat, he turned back to the phone. Yeah, I'll text you when it's done. I slid out, didn't slam the door, didn't let it click. I pulled it shut until it rested, then moved fast and quiet around the side of the house. The neighborhood looked too normal. Porch lights glowing up and down Canoga Road. Christmas wreaths already hanging. Mrs. Wallace's dog barked once, then went quiet. Hendersonville doing what it always does. Going to bed early, pretending trouble only happens on the news. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my keys. I got to the sidewalk, then turned casual like I was just out for an evening stroll. Like I wasn't about to throw up. Patience is my tool. That line came to me the way an old habit does. I'd said it 1,000 times to apprentices when I was still working HVAC. When they rushed a job and stripped a screw. Slow down. Patience is your tool. You use it first. Now I had to use it on myself. I got into my sedan and sat there with the engine off. My breath fogged the windshield. My phone felt slick in my hand. Call the police. Then the next thought came. What do I say? Hello, officer. My stepson said he cut my brake line. No, I don't have a recording. No, there isn't a body yet. In a small town that turns into a punchline. Or worse, you get labeled unstable, paranoid. Trevor would smile and say, Thomas has been stressed, forgetting things. Deborah would dab her eyes. We're worried about him. I couldn't let that happen. So I opened the roadside assistance app and called for a tow. The dispatcher sounded half asleep. What's the pickup location? I stared at my house like it belonged to someone else. Front driveway, I said. My voice came out steady. Silver Ford F-150. Need it towed tonight. Is it drivable? No, I said. Safety issue. How soon? As soon as possible. Then because I couldn't help it, please. I hung up and sat there listening to the quiet tick of my engine. My hands kept shaking, but my brain was already moving through what mattered. Evidence, dates, times, moves that keep you alive. Trevor was 32 and still lived like a teenager. New gadgets, new schemes, old grudges. A few months back, he'd asked me to co-sign a loan. $28,500. Debt consolidation, he'd said. I'd looked at the paperwork and felt my blood pressure climb. Interest rate like a loan shark's smile. I'd told him no. He'd stared at me, then smiled slow and cold. You always think you're better than me. I think I'm older than you, I'd said. And I've learned what debt does. That night, Deborah had taken his side. Not loudly, just in the quiet ways. The way she stopped talking when I walked into a room. The way she made peace feel like my job alone. Now I understood what letting it go meant to them. Headlights swung down the street, a tow truck. My heart kicked. The driver pulled up, thick guy in a beanie breath, puffing white. He climbed out, looked at the truck, then at me sitting in the sedan. He walked over and knocked on my window. I rolled it down an inch. You the one who called? Yes. He nodded at the F-150. What's wrong with it? I swallowed. The chicken bag sat cold beside me now. Brake problem, I said. Taking it to a friend's to get looked at. He squinted. At this hour? I'm up. He's up. It's important. He shrugged like he'd seen every kind of weird. Where we going? Asheville, I said. Off Four Seasons Boulevard. He whistled. That's a haul. I'll pay. He nodded and went to his truck. The winch started. The metal cable rattled, sounded like chains. I watched my Ford F-150 roll onto the flatbed. That truck had been mine before Deborah and I ever shared a bank account. I'd driven it through snowstorms, through years that now felt like they belonged to somebody else. The tow lights blinked red. Nobody came outside. Nobody asked questions. The driver came back with a clipboard. Sign here. My pen shook. I forced my hand steady. Patience is my tool. He tore off a copy and handed it to me. He looked at my face like he was deciding if I was drunk or sick. You all right, man? I stared past him at my house. Warm light leaked through the curtains. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. He nodded, climbed into the truck. The engine rumbled. As the flatbed pulled away, something tore loose in my chest. Like grief. Like anger. Like the last shred of the life I thought I had. My phone buzzed. Deborah, where are you? Another buzz. Trevor, did you move the truck? My throat went dry. I didn't answer. Not yet. I sat there in the dark with a cold bag of chicken beside me, watching the tow truck's taillights disappear down Canoga Road. I didn't scream. I didn't march back in there. I didn't let them see my fear. I slipped out, and I started doing what I'd always done when something broke in the middle of the night. I handled it. The drive to Eugene's place in Asheville took about 30 minutes through dark mountain roads. Every mile felt like I was running away from something and running towards something else at the same time. My hands had stopped shaking somewhere around the city limits. The sedan's heater blew lukewarm air, and the radio played low, some local station talking basketball. I wasn't listening. I was thinking about what I'd say. Eugene, I need you to look at something. Eugene, your son just tried to kill me. None of it sounded right. Eugene Carter wasn't a friend. He was Trevor's biological father, the man Deborah had been with before we met. They'd split when Trevor was still in diapers. Eugene had moved on to a quiet life in Asheville, worked as a mechanic for 35 years before his back gave him the sense to retire. We'd been civil over the years, polite, the kind of relationship you have when you're both trying not to make things harder than they need to be. But Eugene knew cars, and Eugene knew Trevor better than I ever would. I took the exit onto Four Seasons Boulevard and wound through a neighborhood of low brick ranches. A flag hung from Eugene's porch, and an old Buick sat under the carport. I pulled into the driveway. Before I could get out, the porch light flicked on. The door opened. Eugene stood there in sweatpants and a flannel shirt, gray hair flattened like he'd been asleep. He looked me up and down. "Thomas," he said. My name came out like a question. I killed the engine and got out. "Eugene, I need to talk." He glanced past me at the empty driveway. "Where's the truck?" "On the way," I said. "Towed." His eyebrows jumped. "Towed, why?" "Because I don't trust it," I said. "Can I come in?" He hesitated, then stepped back. Inside smelled like black coffee and old leather. The living room had photos on the shelves. Trevor as a kid. Trevor at graduation. Trevor fishing with Eugene. Eugene had kept the best parts. He motioned to the kitchen table. I sat. He crossed his arms, waiting. I pulled the tow receipt from my jacket and set it down. Eugene picked it up, read it. "You had it towed here." "Why?" "Because you know cars," I said. "And I need you to look at something before anyone else touches it." His eyes narrowed. "Thomas, what's going on?" The words stuck in my throat. "I overheard Trevor tonight," I said, "in my garage. I have reason to believe somebody messed with my brakes. On purpose." Eugene sat back. The chair creaked. "You accusing Trevor?" "I'm telling you I'm not driving that truck," I said. "And I want it checked by someone who won't sugarcoat it." Eugene stared at me. Then he stood and walked to the counter. "What do you want from me?" "Just look," I said. "That's all." He turned his head. "And if I find something, then we call the police." Eugene's face hardened. "All right," he said. "I'll look. But if this thing is dangerous, I'm not driving it anywhere. I'm pulling it into the garage and putting it on stands. You got that?" Relief hit me hard. "Yes, that's what I want." We heard the tow truck rumbling down the street. Sam backed the flatbed down, chains clanking. Eugene watched like he already owned it. "Set it in front of the garage," Eugene said. "I'll take it from here." Sam nodded. "Drop it or unhook inside." "Drop it," Eugene said. "I'm not driving it an inch." The truck settled with a thud. Sam got paid and left. Eugene popped the hood, grabbed a flashlight, and slid a creeper out. He moved like muscle memory was doing the work. I stood in the doorway watching his boots stick out from under the truck. "So," Eugene said, voice muffled, "tell me exactly what you heard." He said he cut the brake line. Silence. Then Eugene rolled out halfway and looked at me. "You sure?" "Yes." "And Deborah? She didn't stop him." Eugene rolled back under. His flashlight moved across metal and hoses. I heard him muttering, then a sharp intake of breath. "Thomas," he said. His voice was tight now. "Come look at this." I crouched down. Eugene angled the flashlight. "I'm not a mechanic, but I know the difference between worn and broken." The brake line wasn't frayed, it wasn't rusted. It was cut, clean. straight, my vision blurred. "That's not an accident," Eugene said. He rolled out and sat up. "That's deliberate." My stomach flipped. Eugene stood. "When did you last drive it?" "Yesterday afternoon. It felt fine." He nodded. "Then it was done after that?" "Tonight," I whispered. Eugene blew out a breath. Jesus. Neither of us spoke. The cold crept in. Eugene pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," I said. "Let me make one call first." He nodded once. One. I stepped away and turned my phone on. Missed calls flooded in. I ignored them and dialed Elizabeth Garrett. She picked up on the second ring. "This better be good. It's almost midnight." "Elizabeth, I need advice. Right now." She heard something in my voice. "And where are you?" "Asheville, with my truck. The brake line's been cut." Pause. "Cut? How? Clean?" A mechanic's looking at it now. Another pause. "Listen carefully. You didn't touch it. You didn't drive it." "Correct. Correct. And it's no longer in your possession. Will be transferred in the morning. There's a paper trail." "Good. Now yes, call the police tonight. Document everything. Dates, times, witnesses. They might think I did something." "They might," she said. "But facts beat fear. Stay calm. Say what you know. Nothing more." I hung up. Eugene was dialing 911. Red and blue lights washed over the garage minutes later. 2 officers came. They took statements. They photographed the line. They asked why the truck was here. I told them the truth. Calm, clear. The younger officer frowned. "You're saying your stepson did this?" "I'm saying the brake line was cut, and I overheard him say he did it." "And your wife?" "She didn't object," the older officer wrote slowly. They left after an hour, promising follow-up. When the garage went quiet, Eugene leaned against the workbench and rubbed his face. My own kid. I sank into a chair. My hands shook. "You okay?" Eugene asked. I opened my mouth to say yes. Instead, I gagged. Made it to the trash can just in time. Eugene held the can steady. Waited. After I sat there, staring at the floor. "I don't feel like I won," I said. Eugene shook his head. "You didn't win. You survived." Outside, my phone buzzed. Another voicemail. Trevor. I didn't listen to it yet. I just knew one thing. This wasn't over. I woke up on Eugene's couch with my coat still on and my neck stiff from sleeping wrong. The smell of coffee drifted in from the kitchen, bitter and strong. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. Then the image of that clean-cut brake line snapped back into place. Eugene was at the table, scrolling through his phone, jaw tight. "You're internet famous," he said, without looking up. My stomach sank. He turned the screen toward me. Deborah's Facebook post. Long, emotional, carefully written. "Please pray for my family. Thomas left last night in a fit of anger and took things too far. My son is being accused of something terrible, and we are heartbroken. Lies can destroy a family faster than any accident." There was a picture. Deborah and Trevor from last Christmas, smiling arms around each other, our living room glowing behind them. The comments were already stacking up. "So sorry, Deborah. Praying for you and Trevor. Some men just can't handle losing control. You deserve better." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "She didn't mention the brakes," I said. No, Eugene replied. She mentioned feelings. By noon, the neighborhood had chosen its version of the truth. I drove back to Hendersonville to grab clothes, keeping my head down. People I'd waved to for years suddenly found reasons to look at their phones. Mrs. Wallace from 3 houses down stared at me like I'd tracked mud into her church. At the end of Cayuga Road, I saw 2 squad cars parked near my house. An officer stepped up when he saw me. "Mr. Bennett, we need to ask you a few more questions." Inside, the place felt hollow. Deborah sat on the couch, eyes red, hands folded like she was in a waiting room. Trevor stood near the hallway, arms crossed. He looked calm, almost bored. "You told them I left in a rage," I said. She didn't look at me. "You scared us," she said quietly. Trevor smirked. "Yeah, Thomas, you've been acting weird lately." The officer raised a hand. "Let's keep this respectful." I answered their questions again. Same facts, same timeline. I could feel Trevor watching me, waiting for me to slip. Then he spoke, voice wounded. "My stepdad hates me. He's been trying to get me out of the house for months." "That's not true," I said. Deborah finally looked up. "You said he needed to move out." "I said he needed a plan," I replied. "He's 32. The officer scribbled notes. When they left, Deborah stood and pointed toward the door. "You shouldn't be here." I laughed once, short and ugly. "You planned my funeral." Her face went pale. "You're sick," she whispered. I walked out before I said something I couldn't take back. That afternoon, I sat alone in a cheap motel off I-26 watching the parking lot through the blinds. Every set of headlights made my shoulders tense. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and pine sol. The bedspread had a pattern that might have been flowers once. A TV bolted to the dresser played local news on mute. My phone sat on the nightstand screen, dark. I'd turned off notifications hours ago, but I could still feel them messages piling up like snow. I picked it up finally. Opened Facebook. Deborah's post had been shared 43 times. The Hendersonville community page had its own thread going. Prayers for the Bennett family during this difficult time. Rumors are flying and it's heartbreaking. Someone had commented, "We stand with you, Deborah." I stared at that line. The town had picked a side and it wasn't mine. I scrolled through the comments. Most were supportive of Deborah. A few were cautious. "Let's wait for all the facts." But those were buried under the avalanche. One comment stopped me cold. "Thomas Bennett always seemed off to me. Too quiet." You never know with those types. I'd helped that woman carry groceries once when her husband was in the hospital. I set the phone down. In a small town, your reputation is currency, and mine was tanking fast. The thing about a lie is that it doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be first. Deborah had gotten her story out while I was still trying to figure out how to survive the night. Now I was the unstable husband, the paranoid stepdad, the man who couldn't handle his own house falling apart. And Trevor was the victim, the misunderstood son. It was a good story. Clean, simple, easy to believe. The truth was messy, complicated. It required people to imagine that a wife and stepson could be cold enough to plan a murder, that a brake line could be cut deliberately, that the smiling family in the Christmas photo could be something else entirely. Most people don't want to imagine that. It's easier to believe I'm the problem. I thought about calling my daughter Sarah. She lived 2 states over, now had her own family. We talked every few months, kept it light. I hadn't told her about the tension with Deborah and Trevor. Now I wondered if that had been a mistake. But what would I even say? "Hey, honey, Your stepmother and stepbrother tried to kill me. How are the kids? I left the phone on the nightstand. The motel had thin walls. I could hear a couple arguing, next-door voices rising and falling. A truck rumbled past on the interstate, Jake brakes hissing. I got up and checked the door lock, then checked it again. Then I pulled a chair over and wedged it under the handle. It probably wouldn't stop anyone determined, but it made me feel slightly less exposed. I sat back down and looked at my hands. They were steadier than last night, but I could still see the tremor if I held them flat. Patience is my tool. I'd said that to myself 100 times since the garage. But patience was getting harder to hold on to, because patience required faith that things would work themselves out. And right now, it didn't feel like the truth was winning. My phone buzzed. A text from Eugene. "You holding up?" I typed back. "Yeah. Thanks for last night." A pause. Then police came by again. "Talked to the neighbors. One guy saw Trevor in your garage late that night. Another heard tools." My pulse jumped. "They told you that?" "Told me they're building a timeline." I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. A timeline. Evidence. Witnesses. Small pieces. But pieces. I pulled the scratchy motel blanket over my legs and leaned back against the headboard. The TV was still on mute. Some commercial for car insurance. A happy family loading up for a road trip, golden retriever in the back seat. I grabbed the remote and turned it off. Outside, another set of headlights swept across the parking lot. I tensed, watching through the gap in the blinds until the car kept going. Then I closed my eyes and tried to remember what normal felt like. I couldn't. The motel room became my world for the next 36 hours. I didn't leave except to grab vending machine coffee and a sandwich from the gas station next door. The clerk looked at me like I was trouble waiting to happen. Maybe I was. Back in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. Trevor's voicemail sat there like a stone in my gut. I'd been avoiding it since Eugene's garage. Now I couldn't put it off anymore. I pressed play. "Thomas." His voice was smooth, easy, like he was calling to ask about borrowing the lawnmower. "You really messed up this time. Dad's upset. Mom's upset. You didn't have to do this. We could have talked." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, barely breathing. Dad's upset. Mom's upset. He'd never called Deborah mom around me. Not once in 11 years. It was always Deborah or she or nothing at all. Like acknowledging her as his mother in front of me would give me too much ground. But now she was mom. Now they were a united front, and I was the outsider who disrupted the family. The voicemail continued. "Look, I don't know what you think you heard, but you're wrong. And this whole thing with the truck, come on, man. That's just paranoid." His tone wasn't angry. It wasn't defensive. It was annoyed. Like I was a kid who'd broken curfew, and now he had to deal with the fallout. "Anyway," Trevor said, sighing like he was doing me a favor, "call me when you're ready to talk like adults. We can work this out." The voicemail ended. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. Then I forwarded it to Elizabeth Garrett with a message. "Listen to this. Especially the tone." Her response came back 10 minutes later. "Good. This helps. Intent in tone. He's not surprised, he's annoyed. Save everything. Document everything." I set the phone down and rubbed my face. Trevor wasn't panicking. He wasn't scrambling to cover his tracks or claim innocence. He was irritated that I'd thrown a wrench in his plans. That scared me more than anything else, because it meant he still thought he could control this, that he could smooth it over, play the victim, and come out clean on the other side. And maybe he could. I'd seen it before, people who lied so smoothly that the truth started to look like the problem. People who could twist a story until you questioned your own memory. Trevor had been doing that his whole life. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls too close. I stood and paced 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. The carpet was worn thin in a path between the bed and the bathroom, like 100 other people had done the same thing. I thought about calling Deborah, not to explain, not to argue, just to hear her voice and know if there was anything left of the woman I'd married. If there was any part of her that felt guilt or doubt or fear. But I didn't. Because I already knew the answer. She'd made her choice the moment she asked Trevor if he was sure. The moment she exhaled in relief. The moment she didn't stop him. She'd chosen him, and I was the problem that needed to be removed. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back an inch. The parking lot was half empty. A pickup truck with a camper shell, a sedan with out-of-state plates, a guy in a Carhartt jacket loading bags into his trunk. Normal people doing normal things. I let the curtain fall and sat back down. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You're making this worse for everyone." I stared at it. Trevor, Deborah. Someone else. I didn't reply. Just screenshot it and sent it to Elizabeth. Her response was immediate: "Do not engage. Let them talk. Everything they say is evidence." Another text came through. Same unknown number. "People are asking questions. You need to fix this." Then another. "You can't hide forever." My chest tightened. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand and tried to breathe. They were testing me, pushing to see if I'd crack, if I'd reply, if I'd give them something they could twist. I wouldn't. Patience is my tool. But God, it was hard. The hours crawled. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every sound outside the door made my heart race. A vacuum cleaner down the hall, a door slamming, voices passing by. I kept the chair wedged under the handle. By the time morning came, I felt like I'd aged a year. I made instant coffee with the room's tiny kettle and sat by the window watching the sun come up over the interstate. The sky went from black to gray to pale gold, and the traffic picked up people heading to work, to school, to wherever their normal lives took them. I missed normal. I missed waking up and not checking the locks. Missed walking into a room without calculating exits. Missed trusting that the people in my house weren't planning my death. My phone rang. I picked it up, expecting another unknown number. But it was Stanley Coleman. Stanley and I had worked together for years before his knees gave out, and he retired early. Good guy. Solid. The kind of person who showed up when you needed help moving furniture or jump-starting a car. I hadn't talked to him since this whole thing started. I answered. "Stanley." "Thomas," he said. His voice was careful. "You doing okay?" "I've been better." "Yeah, I heard some things. Wanted to check in." I closed my eyes. At least one person in this town didn't think I was crazy. "Thanks, I appreciate it." There was a pause. Then Stanley said, "Thomas, I've got something you need to hear." My pulse kicked. "What is it?" "Not over the phone," he said. "But it's good, or at least it's useful. When can we meet?" I looked around the motel room, the unmade bed, the chair under the door, the curtains I hadn't opened all the way in a day and a half. "Now," I said. "Where?" "There's a diner off exit 9. You know the one?" "Yeah." "I'll be there in 20. He hung up. I stood, grabbed my jacket, and checked the peephole before opening the door. The hallway was empty. I stepped out, locked the door behind me, and walked fast toward the parking lot. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something besides fear. I felt hope. The diner off exit 9 smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee. It was the kind of place where truckers stop at 4 in the morning, and the waitress knows everyone's order before they sit down. Stanley was already in a back booth when I walked in. He looked older than I remembered, more gray in his beard, deeper lines around his eyes. But his handshake was still firm. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel worse." He nodded toward the coffee pot on the table. "Help yourself." I poured a cup and wrapped my hands around it. The warmth felt good. Stanley leaned forward, voice low. "I did some digging after you told me what happened. Nothing official, just asking around. You know how it is." I nodded. "There's an auto zone on Spartanburg Highway. Trevor used to hang around there sometimes when he was working on that Mustang a few years back. I figured it was worth a shot." My pulse picked up. "And store manager's a guy I know from church." I explained I was helping with an investigation, kept it vague, and asked if I could look at their security footage from last week. Stanley pulled out his phone and set it on the table between us. "They've got cameras on every register. Date and time stamped." He tapped the screen. A grainy video started playing. The angle was from above, looking down at the checkout counter. A kid in an AutoZone vest was scanning items. Then Trevor stepped into frame. I leaned closer. Trevor looked casual, relaxed. He was wearing a hoodie and jeans, hands in his pockets while he waited. The kid scanned something, I couldn't see what from the angle, and Trevor pulled out his wallet. Stanley paused the video and zoomed in on the register screen. "Tubing cutter," he said. $28.99. Purchased 2 days before you overheard him in the garage. My throat went dry. Stanley let the video play. Trevor paid, took his bag, and walked out of frame. "That's not all," Stanley said. He fast-forwarded. The timestamp jumped ahead 10 minutes. Then Deborah walked into frame. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She was at a different register, the one on the left side of the store. She had her purse over her shoulder, and she was looking down at her phone while the cashier rang up her items. I couldn't see what she bought, but it didn't matter. She was there, 10 minutes after Trevor. Stanley paused the video again. "She paid cash," he said. "No credit card trail, but the timestamp doesn't lie." I stared at the frozen image of my wife standing in an auto parts store 10 minutes after my stepson bought a tool to cut my brake line. "She knew," I whispered. Stanley nodded slowly. "Yeah, she knew." I sat back in the booth trying to process it. Part of me had still been holding on to the possibility that Deborah had been manipulated, that Trevor had lied to her, that she didn't understand what she was agreeing to when she asked if he was sure. But this wasn't manipulation. This was coordination. She'd followed him to the store, bought something, probably supplies something to help clean up or cover tracks, paid cash so there wouldn't be a paper trail. She'd been part of it from the beginning. "I'm sorry, man," Stanley said quietly. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Stanley reached across the table and squeezed my shoulder once. Then he picked up his phone. "I made copies of the footage, sent them to myself. You'll want to get this to your lawyer and the police." "Yeah," I said. My voice came out rough. "Yeah, I will." "There's more," Stanley said. "The store manager said a couple of other people came in asking questions. Detectives, I think. So the police are already looking into it." That made me sit up straighter. "Here they are. Seems like it. The manager said they asked for the same footage I did. Gave them copies on a USB drive." Relief washed over me so hard I felt dizzy. The police were investigating. Really investigating. Not just taking statements and filing reports. They were building a case. Stanley paid for the coffee and we walked out to the parking lot together. The morning sun was bright and cold, cutting through the December air. "You got a place to stay?" he asked. "Motel off I-26. He frowned. That's no good. You need somewhere safer than that. I'll be fine. Stanley looked at me like he didn't believe it, but he let it go. Call me if you need anything, he said. And I mean anything. I will. Thanks, Stanley. He got in his truck and drove off. I stood there for a minute watching the traffic on the interstate. Then I pulled out my phone and called Elizabeth Garrett. She answered on the first ring. Tell me you have good news. Store video, I said. Trevor buying a tubing cutter 2 days before. Deborah showing up 10 minutes later. Both at AutoZone on Spartanburg Highway. There was a pause. Do you have the footage? Stanley sent it to me. I can forward it. Do it now. And send it to the detective handling your case too. This is solid, Thomas. This is very solid. I forwarded the files while we were still on the phone. One more thing, Elizabeth said. Stay low. Don't go back to the house. Don't contact Deborah or Trevor. Let the evidence do the talking. I wasn't planning on it. Good. I'll call you later. She hung up. I got in my car and drove back to the motel. The room felt different when I walked in, less like a cage and more like a temporary stop. That evening, I was half asleep on the bed when the local news came on. The anchor was a woman with too much hairspray and a serious expression. Police in Hendersonville are investigating what they're calling a possible case of vehicle tampering. Sources say the investigation involves a local family and could result in felony charges. We'll have more on this story as it develops. I sat up. They were talking about me, about Trevor, about Deborah. The story was out. Not just on social media where Deborah could control the narrative, out in the open where facts mattered. For the first time since the garage, I smiled, not because I'd won, not because it was over, but because the truth had finally gotten a voice. I lay back down and closed my eyes. But that night at 3 a.m, my chest tightened so badly, I thought I was dying. The pain hit at 3 a.m. I woke up gasping, my chest locked tight like someone had clamped a vise around my rib cage. My left arm tingled, then went numb. Cold sweat soaked through my shirt. The motel room spun. I groped for my phone on the nightstand, my fingers clumsy and thick. This is it, I thought. This is how it ends. I'd survived Trevor's plan. I'd survived the lies, the isolation, the public shaming. But my own body was giving out. I managed to call 911. My voice came out thin and raspy. Chest pain, left arm numb. I think I'm having a heart attack. The dispatcher's voice was calm, practiced. Stay on the line, sir. Help is on the way. Can you unlock your door? I stumbled across the room, vision narrowing to a tunnel. I unlocked the door and collapsed back onto the bedphone still pressed to my ear. Through the thin motel walls, I heard a TV game show. Canned laughter. Life going on like normal while mine was ending. The paramedics arrived in 8 minutes. They took my vitals, asked questions, loaded me onto a stretcher. The ambulance ride to Mission Hospital in Asheville was a blur of flashing lights and oxygen masks. By sunrise, I was sitting on an exam table in the ER, electrodes stuck to my chest, waiting for Dr. Hughes to return with test results. When he came back, he had a clipboard and a tired but reassuring expression. Mr. Bennett, your heart is fine? I stared at him. But the pain was real, he said. But it wasn't a heart attack. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, 190/110. Your heart rate was elevated. You're experiencing what we call an acute stress response. Your body's been running on adrenaline for too long, and it's breaking down. He pulled up a stool and sat across from me, his tone serious. Mr. Bennett, stress can kill you just as surely as a blocked artery, if people don't do it first. He paused, letting that sink in. You need to remove yourself from whatever situation is causing this, or you won't make it to trial. I nodded slowly. My hands were still shaking. I'm writing you a prescription for blood pressure medication, Dr. Hughes continued. But pills won't fix this. You need rest. You need distance. You understand? I do, I said quietly. He gave me a long look, then signed the discharge papers. Eugene picked me up an hour later. He didn't say much on the drive back to Hendersonville, just handed me a bottle of water and kept his eyes on the road. When we pulled into the motel parking lot, he finally spoke. You're staying with me tonight. Eugene, I can't. You can and you will. His voice was firm. You're not dying alone in a motel room because of what my son did. I didn't have the energy to argue. The next week blurred together. Paperwork, phone calls with Elizabeth, updates from Detective Warren about the investigation. I stayed at Eugene's place, sleeping on his couch, trying to keep my blood pressure down. Every morning I took the pills Dr. Hughes prescribed. Every afternoon I checked my phone. Deborah tried to reach me 3 times. The first voicemail started soft, almost tearful. Thomas, please. We need to talk. This has all gotten so out of hand. I never wanted... Her voice broke. Please call me back. The second message 2 days later was sharper. You're making this worse for everyone. People are asking questions. The police came to the house, Thomas. Do you know how humiliating that is? You need to stop this. The third message was ice. Fine, don't answer. But you're going to regret dragging this out. You think you're the victim, you're destroying this family. I forwarded all 3 to Elizabeth without listening to them twice. On Thursday, a woman from our church, Deborah's friend Linda, called me. Her voice was hesitant, apologetic. Thomas, I know this is awkward, but Deborah asked me to reach out. She's really struggling. She just wants to talk to work things out. Maybe if you two could just sit down. I cut her off gently. Linda, I appreciate you trying to help, but I can't do that right now. But she's your wife. Not anymore, I said. Thank you for calling. I hung up and immediately called Elizabeth. Good, she said when I told her. Deborah's using intermediaries because she knows you won't talk to her directly. It's a manipulation tactic. Silence is a boundary, Thomas, and that boundary has kept you alive. It doesn't feel like strength, I admitted. It feels like hiding. It's not hiding, Elizabeth said firmly. It's strategy. Let them make mistakes. Let them show their hand. You just stay quiet and stay safe. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Okay. Friday evening, my phone rang. Elizabeth's name lit up the screen. Thomas. She said, the court date's been set. Preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. We need to talk strategy. Can you meet me at my office tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock? My chest tightened, not pain this time, but anticipation. I'll be there, I said. Good. Bring everything. Receipts, videos, voicemails. We're going to show them exactly what they did. I hung up and stared at the ceiling of Eugene's living room. The worst wasn't over. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt ready. Elizabeth's office smelled like coffee and old law books. She spread documents across her desk, like a general planning a battle. 1 week until the preliminary hearing, she said. Let's walk through what's going to happen. I sat across from her, notebook in hand. My blood pressure had stabilized, but my pulse still jumped whenever I thought about facing Deborah and Trevor in court. Elizabeth tapped her pen on a timeline she'd drawn. The prosecution will call witnesses in a specific order. First, Richard Mason, the forensic technician. He'll testify about the brake line. Clean-cut, deliberate, impossible to happen accidentally. I nodded. I'd seen the photos. The severed line looked like it had been cut with surgical precision. Then we introduced the store footage. Elizabeth continued. Trevor buying the tubing cutter, Deborah arriving 10 minutes later paying cash. That establishes premeditation and coordination. What about my testimony? I asked. You'll go third. You'll describe what you overheard in the garage, the timeline, your decision to document everything instead of confronting them. She looked up at me. The jury needs to understand you weren't paranoid. You were strategic. And Glenn? I said quietly. Elizabeth's expression softened. Glenn Hartman will testify last. He's the emotional anchor. Deborah's lover caught in the middle, willing to tell the truth. She paused. His testimony will hurt her more than anything else. I thought about Glenn, a man I'd never met whose existence had turned my marriage into a lie. Part of me hated him. Another part pitied him. There's one more thing we need to address, Elizabeth said. She pulled out a property transfer form. The truck. We need to officially transfer ownership to Eugene. I frowned. Why, legal protection, she explained. If Deborah's attorney tries to argue you moved the truck to fabricate evidence, we need a paper trail showing it was legally Eugene's property at the time of inspection. It removes any question of tampering. I signed the form. Eugene had already agreed. The truck was evidence now, not transportation. Finally, Elizabeth said, "You need to retrieve your personal belongings from the house. I've arranged a supervised visit for tomorrow afternoon. A deputy will escort you. Deborah has agreed to stay at a friend's place during the visit." My stomach tightened. I haven't been back since. I know, Elizabeth said gently. Make a list tonight. Know exactly what you're taking. Get in, get out. Don't linger. That night at Eugene's, I made the list. My father's toolbox, the one he'd given me when I started my HVAC business 30 years ago. My work files, clothes, the deed to the house, our joint bank account statements. I added one more item, photos of Sarah. I hadn't seen my daughter's pictures in weeks. Deborah had them displayed all over the house. Sarah's college graduation, her wedding holidays. I wanted them back. 2 weeks before the hearing, I returned to the house with Deputy Morrison. The deputy was a young guy, maybe 30, with a kind but professional demeanor. "Take your time, Mr. Bennett," he said as we pulled into the driveway. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." I stepped through the front door. The house was too quiet. No TV, no voices, no life. It smelled faintly of Deborah's lavender candles. Everything looked the same. The couch where I'd sat 1,000 nights, the kitchen table where we'd eaten dinner, the hallway leading to our bedroom. But it wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene dressed up as normal. I started in the bedroom, packing systematically. Clothes into a duffel bag, documents into a banker's box. I worked quickly, mechanically, trying not to think. I opened the closet to grab my winter jacket. That's when I found it, tucked behind a stack of Deborah's sweaters, shoved into the corner, where she thought no one would look. A small prepaid phone, a burner. I picked it up. The screen was locked, but the call log was still visible from the lock screen notification. Dozens of texts, all to the same number. I pressed the home button. A message preview appeared. "He's at Eugene's. Won't answer my calls. This is taking too long." Another one time-stamped 3 days ago. "After the hearing, we'll have the house. Just stay patient." My hands went cold. I stood there in the closet, holding the phone, my father's voice echoing in my head. "Patience is your tool." I slipped the phone into my jacket pocket and walked out of the bedroom. Deputy Morrison looked up as I stepped onto the porch. "All set." "Almost," I said. "I need to make one more call," which I dialed Elizabeth. "I found something," I said when she answered. "You're going to want to see this." I'd been packing for about 20 minutes when I opened the nightstand drawer. The bedroom still smelled like Deborah's vanilla candles, the ones she lit every Sunday evening while reading on the bed, the scent used to mean comfort. Now it made my stomach turn. I pulled out old receipts, half-empty tubes of hand cream, a tangle of phone chargers. Standard junk drawer. I was about to close it when I noticed something odd. The drawer didn't sit flush. There was a gap at the back, maybe half an inch. I pulled it all the way out and set it on the bed. Then I reached into the empty cavity and felt along the bottom panel. My fingers brushed against something taped underneath. I peeled it free. A phone. Small, cheap, prepaid. A burner. My pulse hammered in my ears as I pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life, no password, no lock. Just a home screen with 2 apps, messages, and calls. I opened the messages. The thread was long. Hundreds of texts, all to and from the same number, saved under a single initial G. I scrolled to the top and started reading. Deborah, I can't wait to start our life together. Gee, me neither. But are you sure about the divorce? It's going to get messy. Deborah, it won't be a divorce. Just a few more months and I'll be free. What do you mean, Deborah? Don't worry about it. Just trust me. I kept scrolling. My hands were shaking. Deborah, the house will be mine, plus the retirement account and the life insurance policy. Gee, life insurance. Deborah, what are you planning, Deborah? Nothing you need to worry about. Just be patient. The next message was time-stamped 2 days before I'd overheard Trevor in the garage. Deborah, it'll be handled soon. Then we can finally be together. Gee, I just want to be with you. I don't care about the money. Deborah, I know, baby. But this way, we'll have everything. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the phone still clutched in my hand. This wasn't just about getting rid of me. This was about replacing me. Deborah had a plan, a new life, a new man, and I was the obstacle standing in the way of her fresh start. Trevor hadn't acted alone. He was the tool. Deborah was the architect. I thought about Glenn, whoever he was. Did he know? Did he understand what "handled soon" meant? Or had Deborah kept him in the dark, feeding him just enough hope to keep him loyal? I opened the call log. Dozens of calls, some lasting an hour. Late-night calls, lunch-hour calls, calls made while I was at work. How long had this been going on? I scrolled further back through months of messages. The tone shifted. Early texts were flirtatious, playful. Then they turned serious, then calculating. One message from 3 months ago stopped me cold, Deborah. He's getting older, stress from work. I think his heart's not great. It wouldn't be suspicious. Gee, what wouldn't be suspicious, Deborah? Nothing. Forget I said anything. She'd been planning this for months. I stood up the room, tilting slightly. My chest felt tight again, not panic this time, but rage. I walked into the hallway where Deputy Morrison was waiting by the front door. Everything okay, Mr. Bennett? He asked. I held up the phone. I need you to bag this as evidence. It needs to go to Detective Warren immediately. The deputy's expression shifted to alertness. What is it? Proof, I said. My voice sounded hollow, distant. Proof that this wasn't just Trevor. It was her. Morrison pulled out an evidence bag and carefully sealed the phone inside. He labeled it, noted the time and location, then looked at me. You want to finish packing, or do you want to go? I thought about my father's toolbox still sitting in the garage, the photos of Sarah, the documents I'd come to collect. I need to finish, I said, but I'm saving the garage for last. That evening, Elizabeth called. Detective Warren ran the number from the burner phone, she said. It belongs to Glenn Hartman, 52 years old. Works at an insurance agency in Asheville. No criminal record. I sat on Eugene's couch, staring at the wall. Does he know about the brake line? No. Elizabeth's tone was careful. Based on the messages, it looks like Deborah kept him in the dark. She told him you'd have a heart attack or an accident. She made it sound natural. So he's just a guy who fell in love with the wrong woman. Probably, Elizabeth said. Well, but that doesn't make him innocent. He knew she was married. He knew she was planning something. He just chose not to ask too many questions. I thought about that. Willful ignorance. Convenient blindness. Warren wants to interview him, Elizabeth continued. If Glenn cooperates, he could be a powerful witness. A man who can testify that Deborah talked about your death like it was inevitable. Will he cooperate? If he's smart, yes. If he's loyal to Deborah. She trailed off. We'll see. I hung up and sat in the dark. Outside, the Blue Ridge Mountains were black shapes against a darker sky. Somewhere out there, Glenn Hartman was learning that the woman he loved was a murderer. And somewhere else, Deborah was realizing her plan was unraveling. I thought about the message, it'll be handled soon, but I was still here. I handed the phone to the deputy. This needs to go to Detective Warren. I said, my voice empty. It's evidence. The deputy slipped it carefully into an evidence bag. You still need to clear out the garage. I nodded. I'd saved it for last. The garage still smelled like motor oil and old tools, familiar, almost comforting if I didn't think about what had happened here. I'd been sorting through boxes for about 10 minutes when I glanced up and saw a tiny red light blinking in the corner of the ceiling. I froze. A camera. The memory hit me all at once. 4 months ago, after someone broke into a neighbor's shed and stole a generator, I'd installed a basic security system. 2 cameras, one facing the driveway, one inside the garage. Cloud storage, motion-activated recording. And then I'd completely forgotten about it. I never opened the app after the first week. No alerts, no reason to check. It just faded into the background like so many things you set up once and never think about again. Trevor must have noticed. When he told Deborah, he doesn't even use the security app. He wasn't wrong. I didn't. But what he didn't understand, what I didn't even remember until this moment, was that the cameras kept recording whether I checked them or not. Cloud storage doesn't care if you're paying attention. My heart pounded as I pulled out my phone and opened the app. I typed in my credentials with shaking fingers. The dashboard loaded. 2 camera feeds. Driveway, garage. I scrolled to the night I'd overheard Trevor. The timestamp glowed 11:47 p.m. I tapped the file. The video began. The garage was dim, lit only by the overhead fluorescent light. The angle was perfect wide view, clear audio, everything in frame. Trevor entered first, walking toward my sedan. He was wearing a dark hoodie, hands in his pockets, checking corners like he was making sure no one was watching. Then Deborah appeared in the doorway. She didn't come all the way in. She just stood there, arms crossed, watching. You sure about this, Mom? Trevor's voice came through the phone speaker, tinny but clear. Mom. He'd never called her that when I was around. But here in the dark, planning my death, he called her Mom. Deborah stepped closer, her face calm, not conflicted, not hesitant, directing. Just do it, she said. Make it clean. No fraying. It has to look like normal wear. Trevor knelt beside the sedan, sliding underneath with a flashlight clenched between his teeth. The camera caught the metallic glint of the tubing cutter, the one he'd bought 2 days earlier at AutoZone. I heard the soft snip of the blade biting through the brake line. "When's he driving it next?" Deborah asked. "Tomorrow," Trevor said, his voice muffled. "He always takes it on Saturdays, goes to Ingles, then the hardware store." "Good." Deborah's tone was businesslike. "The sooner this is over, the better." Trevor slid out, wiping his hands on his jeans. He held up the tubing cutter like a trophy. "Done." Deborah nodded. "Did you check the footage on his phone?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah," Trevor said. "There's nothing. He doesn't even use the security app." Deborah almost smiled. "Good. And Eugene?" "He won't ask questions," Trevor said. "He'll just think it was bad luck." They stood there for another moment. Then Deborah turned and walked out. Trevor followed, flicking off the light. The video ended. I sat on the concrete floor, staring at my phone. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's how long it took for my wife to orchestrate my murder. I replayed the video. Each time I tried to find something, hesitation, doubt, a flicker of remorse. But there was nothing. Deborah's face was calm, focused, efficient. She was in charge. Trevor was her weapon, her tool. And I was the problem they were solving together. I thought about the burner phone, the texts about life insurance and retirement accounts. Deborah had built a whole new life in secret, and the only thing standing between her and that life was me. Trevor thought he'd covered his tracks. He'd checked my phone usage and assumed the cameras weren't a threat. But he'd made one critical mistake. He confused my neglect with the system's inactivity. The cameras didn't need me to watch. They just needed to exist. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. I called Elizabeth. "I have video," I said. "Everything, the whole thing." There was a pause. Video of what? Trevor cutting the brake line, Deborah directing him. Audio, clear footage. It's all here. "Don't touch that footage," Elizabeth said immediately. "I'm coming to you right now. Where are you?" "At the house. In the garage." "Stay there. I'm 15 minutes away." She arrived in 12. Deputy Morrison was still outside. Elizabeth walked past him into the garage where I sat on an overturned crate phone in hand. "Show me," she said. I handed her the phone. She pressed play. We watched together in silence. When the video ended, Elizabeth stared at the screen, her jaw tight. Finally, she looked at me. "Thomas, this is every prosecutor's dream. This changes everything." "What do you mean? This isn't just evidence anymore. This is a confession." She rewound the video to Deborah's line, "Make it clean. No fraying. It has to look like normal wear." "Our premeditation," Elizabeth said. "Conspiracy, attempted murder. And it's all on tape, clear as day, with audio of her giving instructions." She pulled out her phone and dialed Detective Warren. "I need you at the Bennett house immediately. We have video evidence you need to see." She hung up and turned back to me. "Thomas, do you understand what this means?" I nodded slowly. "She can't lie her way out of this." "No," Elizabeth said quietly. "She can't." We sat in the garage waiting for the detective, the tiny red light on the camera still blinking in the corner. I thought about Deborah standing in that doorway, arms crossed, watching her son cut my brake line. The sooner this is over, the better. But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. 1 week before the hearing, Elizabeth turned my motel room into a war room. Papers spread across the bed, timelines taped to the walls, evidence photos lined up on the dresser like soldiers waiting for deployment. "Let's walk through it one more time," she said, tapping her pen against a legal pad. "Richard Mason testifies first. He's the technical anchor. Clean-cut, deliberate, impossible to be accidental wear." I nodded, taking notes. We'd been over this 3 times already, but Elizabeth was relentless. Then the store footage, she continued. Trevor buying the tubing cutter. Deborah arriving 10 minutes later. That establishes coordination. And then me, I said. And then you. Elizabeth looked up. You're the emotional center of this case, Thomas. The jury needs to see you as credible, measured, and sympathetic. Not bitter, not vengeful, just a man who trusted the wrong people. She stood up and moved to the other side of the room. Let's practice. I'm going to be Attorney Pearson, Trevor's lawyer. He's going to come at you hard. For the next hour, Elizabeth hammered me with questions. Mr. Bennett, isn't it true that you have a history of conflict with your stepson? No, I said. We had disagreements, but nothing serious. Disagreements about what? Money, responsibility, normal family issues. Normal, Elizabeth's voice sharpened. Is it normal to refuse to help your own stepson when he's struggling financially? I took a breath. I didn't refuse to help. I refused to co-sign a loan for $28,500 when he already owed money on 3 credit cards. Elizabeth nodded. Good. Stay factual. Don't get defensive. She softened her tone. Now the hardest part. They're going to ask why you didn't go to the police immediately, why you moved the truck instead. Because I needed proof, I said. If I'd called 911 that night, it would have been my word against theirs. I needed time to build a case. And you were afraid, Elizabeth added quietly. I met her eyes. Yes, I was afraid. She sat down across from me. That's the truth, Thomas. Don't hide it. Fear is human. The jury will understand. The next day, Detective Warren called. Glenn Hartman has agreed to testify, he said. He's been subpoenaed. He's not happy about it, but he'll cooperate. How is he? I asked. Warren paused. Broken. He loved her, Thomas, and now he's realizing she used him. I thought about the texts on the burner phone. I just want to be with you. Glenn had been a pawn just like me. The difference was I'd figured it out in time. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. I lay on Eugene's couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the first time I'd met Deborah. She'd been working at a dental office in Asheville, sharp and funny, with a 17-year-old son who seemed quiet but polite. Trevor had called me Sir back then. Shook my hand, asked about my HVAC business. When had it changed? Or had it always been an act? The morning of the hearing, I drove to the Henderson County Courthouse on Main Street. The building was red brick, old, but well-maintained with white columns and an American flag hanging over the entrance. Elizabeth met me at the bottom of the steps. You ready? As I'll ever be, I said. Inside, we passed through metal detectors. The hallway smelled like floor wax and stale coffee. People moved in and out of courtrooms, lawyers carrying briefcases, families sitting on benches waiting for their cases to be called. And then I saw them. Deborah and Trevor standing near the courtroom door with Attorney Pearson. Deborah was wearing a navy blue blazer and a silver cross necklace. Her eyes were red-rimmed, a tissue clutched in one hand. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile. Performing. Trevor stood beside her in a clean, button-down shirt, hands in his pockets, his face carefully neutral. When Deborah saw me, she stepped forward. Thomas, she said softly, you don't have to do this. Elizabeth moved between us immediately. Ma'am, he's not doing anything. He's reporting a crime. Deborah's eyes filled with tears. A crime, Thomas. This is our family. It stopped being a family the night you told Trevor to cut my brake line, I said quietly. Her face flickered just for a second, and I saw it. Not grief, not confusion, anger. Then the mask slid back into place. She turned away, dabbing her eyes with the tissue. We stepped into the courtroom. It was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, a raised bench for the judge, rows of benches filling up with people. I recognized Mrs. Wallace from my street, a few women from Deborah's church, local townspeople who'd followed the story on social media. Eugene sat in the back row, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Elizabeth guided me to the front bench behind the prosecutor's table. "Just breathe," she whispered. "Stay steady." The bailiff called the room to order. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Reynolds." Judge Reynolds entered, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. She sat, adjusted her glasses, and scanned the room. "Be seated," she said. I pressed my hands between my knees, trying to stop them from shaking. I thought about my father's voice. "Patience is your tool." Elizabeth leaned close. "Breathe. Just stay steady." The prosecutor stood up, a tall man in a dark suit with a calm, measured presence. He looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, the state calls Richard Mason." The courtroom door opened and Richard Mason walked in, the forensic technician who'd examined my brake line. This was it. The truth was about to come out. Judge Reynolds had steel-gray hair, sharp glasses, and the weathered face of someone who'd heard every lie a courtroom could produce. She nodded to the prosecutor. "Proceed." "Your Honor, the state calls Richard Mason." Richard Mason was in his mid-50s, wearing a gray suit that had seen better days. He walked to the witness stand with the careful posture of someone who spent his days bent over engines and brake systems. The bailiff swore him in. The prosecutor approached. "Mr. Mason, can you state your profession for the record?" "I'm a certified automotive forensic technician," Mason said. His voice was calm, factual. "I specialize in vehicle safety failures and mechanical tampering investigations." "And were you called to examine a vehicle in connection with this case?" "Yes, sir. On October 8th, a silver Ford F-150 pickup truck belonging to Mr. Thomas Bennett. Specifically, I inspected the brake system." The prosecutor held up a photograph. "Is this the brake line you examined?" Mason leaned forward slightly, then nodded. "Yes, that's the driver's side front brake line." "And what were your findings?" Mason's expression didn't change. The brake line had been severed. The cut was clean, perpendicular to the tubing, consistent with a hand tool such as a tubing cutter or cable shears. There was no fraying, no corrosion, no signs of wear or environmental damage. The prosecutor paused, letting that settle. "In your professional opinion, could this have been accidental?" "No." "Could it have been caused by road debris?" "No. Road debris creates jagged tears or compression damage. This was a clean cut." "Could it have been the result of improper maintenance?" Mason's jaw tightened slightly. If this was maintenance, it was criminally negligent at best. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Reynolds glanced up but didn't intervene. Attorney Pearson stood for cross-examination. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with a confident stride and a polished smile. "Mr. Mason, you said this cut was consistent with a hand tool. But you can't say definitively which tool was used, can you?" "Not without examining the tool itself," Mason admitted. "So it could have been any number of tools." "Within a specific category, yes." Pearson nodded like he'd scored a point. "And you can't say when this cut was made, can you?" "Not to the exact hour, but based on the oxidation patterns and lack of fluid leakage at the scene, I'd estimate it occurred within 24 to 48 hours of the vehicle's inspection." Pearson frowned. "But you can't be certain." "I'm certain it was deliberate," Mason said evenly. "Whether it happened Tuesday night or Wednesday morning doesn't change that fact." Pearson hesitated, then sat down. The prosecutor stood again. Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to introduce Exhibit C security footage from the defendant's residence taken on the night of October 6th. Deborah's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. We weren't informed. You were informed 72 hours ago, the prosecutor said smoothly. As required by discovery rules. Judge Reynolds looked at Pearson. Overruled. Proceed. A screen was wheeled into the courtroom. The lights dimmed slightly. The video began to play. The garage. The fluorescent light. Trevor entering, glancing around. And then Deborah standing in the doorway, arms crossed. The audio was clear, amplified through the courtroom speakers. You sure about this, Mom? Just do it. Make it clean. No fraying. It has to look like normal wear. The sound of the tubing cutter snipping through metal. When's he driving it next? Tomorrow. He always takes it on Saturdays. The sooner this is over, the better. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from boredom or distraction. The kind that comes from shock, from disbelief, from watching something so undeniable that there's nothing left to say. I heard someone in the gallery gasp. Mrs. Wallace, sitting 3 rows back, covered her mouth with her hand. I didn't look at Deborah. I didn't have to. I could feel the shift in the room, the way the air changed when a lie collapses under its own weight. When the video ended, the lights came back up. Deborah's face was pale. The tissue she'd been clutching had fallen to the floor. She stared at the screen like it had betrayed her. Trevor's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. His hands were fists on the table. Attorney Pearson sat frozen, his polished confidence gone. Judge Reynolds leaned forward, her pen moving faster across her notepad. She didn't look up. Counselor, do you have anything further? The prosecutor shook his head. Not at this time, Your Honor. Pearson stood slowly. His voice was quieter now, uncertain. Your Honor, we still maintain. Judge Reynolds held up one hand, cutting him off. I've seen enough. Let's hear from Mr. Bennett. The prosecutor nodded. Your Honor, the state calls Thomas Bennett. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but I made myself walk toward the witness stand. Elizabeth gave me a small nod as I passed. Stay steady. I placed my hand on the Bible. The bailiff's voice seemed far away. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do, I said. And then I sat down, facing the courtroom, facing Deborah and Trevor, facing the truth I'd been carrying for weeks. It was time to tell my story. My legs were shaking as I walked to the witness stand. The microphone was too close to my face, the leather chair too stiff. I placed my hand on the Bible and heard the bailiff's voice from somewhere far away. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. I sat down. The courtroom felt smaller from up here. I could see everyone, Deborah in her navy blazer, Trevor staring at the table, Mrs. Wallace in the 3rd row, Eugene near the back. Elizabeth stood at the prosecutor's table, her expression calm and reassuring. The prosecutor approached. Please state your name for the record. Thomas Bennett. And your age and residence. 58, Hendersonville, North Carolina. He nodded. Mr. Bennett, can you describe what happened on the night of October 6th? I took a breath. My voice came out steadier than I expected. I came home around 11:30. I'd stopped at Ingles on 4th Street to pick up fried chicken for dinner. When I pulled into the driveway, I heard voices coming from the garage. What did you hear? I looked down at my hands. I heard my stepson Trevor on the phone. He said, "Yeah, I already cut the brake line. See you at his funeral tomorrow." The word funeral caught in my throat. I paused, swallowed, and continued. Then I heard my wife's voice. She said, "You're sure?" "How did you know it was your wife?" the prosecutor asked. I looked up. 11 years of marriage. You know a voice. And what was her tone? Calm, I said. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't angry. She was asking if he was sure, like she was checking on a task. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Judge Reynolds's pen scratched across her notepad. "What did you do next?" the prosecutor asked. I left, quietly. I didn't confront them. I got back in my car and called a tow truck. Why a tow truck? Because if I'd walked into that garage, I would have been arguing with two people who'd just planned my death. And if something had happened to me that night, if I'd had an accident, a fall, anything, it would have looked like exactly what they wanted. I paused. I needed distance. I needed proof. The prosecutor nodded slowly. "And where did you have the vehicle towed?" "To Eugene Carter's place in Asheville. He's a retired mechanic, and he's Trevor's biological father." Deborah's head snapped up at that. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered something to her. "Why Mr. Carter?" "Because I needed someone I could trust. Someone who knew cars, and someone who wouldn't have any reason to lie for me or for Trevor." The prosecutor stepped back. "No further questions, Your Honor." Attorney Pearson stood up. He buttoned his jacket and walked toward me with a tight smile. "Mr. Bennett, you've had conflicts with Trevor before, haven't you? We've had disagreements. About money." "Yes. In fact, you refused to co-sign a loan for him just weeks before this alleged incident, didn't you?" "I refused to co-sign a $28,500 loan when he already owed money on 3 credit cards?" "Yes." Pearson raised his eyebrows. "So you were frustrated with him?" "I was concerned about his financial decisions. Frustrated enough to want him out of your house." I kept my voice level. I wanted him to take responsibility for his life. That's not the same as wanting him gone. Pearson paced. "Mr. Bennett, you testified that you heard your wife's voice that night. But you didn't see her, did you?" "No." "You didn't see her in the garage at all?" "No, but I heard her. And yet," Pearson said, his tone sharpening, "the security footage shows her standing in the doorway, not inside the garage, not touching anything, just standing there." "Directing," I said quietly. Pearson ignored that. "You also testified that you moved the vehicle to Mr. Carter's residence. A vehicle with a severed brake line. Isn't that reckless? Isn't that dangerous?" "I had it towed," I said. "I didn't drive it. And I told Eugene not to drive it. I asked him to inspect it first." "How convenient," Pearson said, his voice dripping with skepticism. "And when the brake line turned out to be cut, you had your proof." I looked him in the eye. "Yes, I did." "Mr. Bennett, why didn't you call 911 the moment you overheard that conversation? Why didn't you go straight to the police?" I'd been waiting for this question. I'd practiced it with Elizabeth a dozen times. But sitting here in front of Deborah and Trevor and the whole courtroom, the answer felt raw. "Because I was afraid," I said. "If I'd called the police that night, it would have been my word against theirs. No proof, no witnesses. Just a man accusing his wife and stepson of something they could have denied. And while the police were investigating, I would have been living in the same house with 2 people who wanted me dead." Pearson opened his mouth, then closed it. "So I called the tow truck," I continued. "Then I called my lawyer. Then I called the police after the brake line was confirmed. I documented everything. I built a case because I wanted to survive long enough to see justice." The courtroom was silent. Pearson glanced at his notes, then back at me. "No further questions," he said quietly. I stepped down from the witness stand. My legs were still shaking, but I'd held steady. I'd told the truth. Elizabeth gave me a small nod as I sat down beside her. Judge Reynolds looked at the prosecutor. "Anything else?" "Yes, Your Honor." The prosecutor stood. "The state calls Glenn Hartman." A door at the back of the courtroom opened, and Glenn Hartman walked in. Glenn Hartman walked slowly to the witness stand. He was 52, plain-looking, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and slacks, like he'd grabbed them from the back of his closet without thinking. His face was hollow, the kind of exhaustion that comes from sleepless nights and shattered illusions. The bailiff swore him in. Glenn's hand trembled on the Bible. The prosecutor approached. "Mr. Hartman, how do you know Deborah Bennett?" Glenn's voice was quiet. We were involved." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Reynolds glanced up but said nothing. "For how long?" "About 4 months." "And what was the nature of your relationship?" Glenn looked down at his hands. I thought we were going to be together. She told me she was getting a divorce, that her marriage was over, that she just needed time to handle things." "Did you know about the brake line tampering?" "No." Glenn's voice cracked. "God, no. I thought it was just a divorce, a normal divorce." The prosecutor reached into a folder and pulled out the burner phone, now sealed in an evidence bag. "Now, Your Honor, I'd like to read excerpts from text messages exchanged between Mr. Hartman and Mrs. Bennett." Judge Reynolds nodded. The prosecutor held up the phone and began reading aloud. Text from Deborah Bennett, September 23rd. "I can't wait to start our life together." Glenn closed his eyes. Text from Deborah Bennett. "October 1st, just a few more months and I'll be free. The house will be mine, plus the retirement account and the life insurance policy." Glenn's shoulders sagged. Text from Deborah Bennett. "October 4th, 2 days before the incident, it'll be handled soon. Then we can finally be together." The courtroom was silent. Every word hit like a hammer. The prosecutor looked at Glenn. "Mr. Hartman, when did you become aware of the plot to kill Thomas Bennett?" Glenn's voice was barely a whisper. "When Detective Warren interviewed me, I couldn't believe it. I still can't." "Did you ever suspect Mrs. Bennett was planning something beyond a divorce?" "No." Glenn looked up, his eyes red. "She said he had a bad heart, that the stress of work was getting to him. I thought she meant he might have a heart attack naturally. Not that she was..." His voice broke. "Not that she was planning it." The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Attorney Pearson declined to cross-examine. There was nothing left to challenge. Glenn stepped down from the stand, his face pale, his hands shaking. He didn't look at Deborah as he walked past. He just kept his eyes on the floor and left the courtroom. The prosecutor turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this establishes clear motive. Mrs. Bennett was planning a new life funded by her husband's death. She orchestrated the attempt. She directed her son to carry it out. And she manipulated Mr. Hartman into believing it would all be clean and legal." Judge Reynolds leaned forward, her expression unreadable. And then it happened. Deborah stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. Her hands were trembling, her face flushed. "I didn't think he would actually..." She stopped. Her eyes darted around the courtroom, landing on Trevor. Trevor sat rigid, his jaw clenched, staring at the table. Deborah's voice rose, desperate. "Trevor, what did you do?" Trevor's head snapped up. His face twisted with rage. "What did I do?" he shouted, his voice cracking through the courtroom. "You told me to, you said to make it look like an accident, you said." Attorney Pearson grabbed Trevor's shoulder. Don't say another word. But it was too late. The words hung in the air, undeniable and devastating. A public confession. The courtroom erupted. Voices overlapped. People stood. Judge Reynolds slammed her gavel. Order, order in this court. The noise died down slowly, reluctantly. Judge Reynolds removed her glasses and set them on the bench. She looked at Deborah, then at Trevor, then at the prosecutor. The silence stretched. I've heard enough, she said finally. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. There is more than sufficient probable cause to bind both defendants over for trial on charges of conspiracy to commit murder. She turned to Trevor. Mr. Bennett, you are remanded into custody without bail. A no-contact order is issued between you and Thomas Bennett, effective immediately. Then she looked at Deborah. Mrs. Bennett, additional charges of conspiracy and solicitation to commit murder will be filed. Bail hearing set for next week. Two deputies moved forward. Trevor stood slowly. His face was blank now. The rage drained away, replaced by something worse, realization. As the deputy cuffed him, Trevor was led past Thomas. For just a second, their eyes met. Trevor's gaze was pure, burning hatred. Thomas didn't look away. The deputy guided Trevor toward the side door. His footsteps echoed in the silent courtroom. Deborah was still standing, her hands clutched to her chest. She wasn't crying. She was just frozen, staring at the table like she couldn't believe what had just happened. A second deputy approached her. Ma'am, you need to come with me. Deborah's voice was small, broken. This wasn't supposed to. I didn't mean for it to. The deputy didn't respond. She just guided Deborah toward a different door. As Deborah passed Thomas, she looked at him. Not with hatred, not with anger, with disbelief. Like she couldn't understand how he was still here, still alive, still standing. And then she was gone. The courtroom door closed behind her with a heavy final thud. Thomas sat there, his hands gripping the edge of the bench, breathing slowly. Eugene rose from the back row and walked forward. He didn't say anything. He just stood beside Thomas, solid and steady. Elizabeth leaned over. It's over, she said quietly. You did it. Thomas nodded, but he didn't feel victorious. He just felt tired. Judge Reynolds stood. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell one last time. Outside, the December air was cold and sharp. Thomas and Eugene walked down the courthouse steps together, the afternoon sun breaking through the clouds. Behind them, the courthouse doors swung shut. Ahead, the road stretched open. I stepped out of the courthouse into pale December sunlight. The air was cold, sharp against my face, but it didn't feel harsh. It felt clean. I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like I was finally truly alive. Eugene stood on the steps, hands in his pockets, waiting. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with that quiet understanding that comes from carrying your own kind of grief. You did the right thing, he said finally. I'm sorry, I said. About Trevor, about all of it. Eugene shook his head slowly. Don't be. I raised him, or I tried to. Whatever he became, that's on me too. It's not, it is. Eugene said, his voice firm but not angry. But that doesn't change what needed to happen. You survived. That's what matters. We stood there for a moment. Two men on courthouse steps, both carrying losses we'd never fully put down. Behind us, the courthouse doors opened. The churchwomen filed out, Mrs. Wallace among them. She avoided my eyes, her face tight with discomfort. But another woman, someone I recognized from Sunday services, gave me a small nod. It wasn't much, but it was something. A shift. Elizabeth appeared at my elbow, her briefcase in hand. "Thomas, we need to talk logistics." "Now. Just the basics." She guided me toward the parking lot away from the lingering crowd. "This isn't over. There's still the trial sentencing appeals. But the hardest part is done. Trevor will likely take a plea deal to reduce his sentence. Deborah will fight. But we have everything: the video, the phone, Glenn's testimony. She has no way out." I nodded slowly. "How long?" "Months, maybe a year before sentencing. But you don't have to be there for all of it. Just when they call you to testify at trial. And until then." Elizabeth looked at me, her expression softening. "Until then, you rebuild." I drove back to the motel in silence. My hands were steady on the wheel, but when I parked and sat in the quiet car, the tears came. Not sobs, just slow, heavy tears for the marriage I'd thought I had, for the years I'd given to a woman who'd planned my death for the family I'd believed in that had never really existed. I let myself cry, just for a few minutes, and then I wiped my face and called my daughter. Sarah answered on the second ring. "Dad." Her voice was tight with worry. "I saw the news." "Oh my God." "I'm okay," I said. "Are you really?" I thought about that. "Yeah," I said. "I am. I'm coming to see you. This weekend, I'm driving down." "Sarah, you don't have to." "Dad, you almost died. I'm coming." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her voice, steady, protective, fierce. "Okay." We talked for an hour. I told her everything. She listened, asked questions, cried, got angry. And when we finally hung up, I felt lighter. Not healed, but less alone. 2 weeks after the hearing, I went back to the house one last time. Elizabeth met me there with the divorce papers. The driveway looked the same: cracked asphalt, overgrown hedges, the mailbox I'd replaced 3 summers ago. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a crime scene I'd finally been allowed to leave. Inside the house was empty. Deborah's bail hearing had gone through, but she wasn't staying here. She'd moved in with a friend from church while awaiting trial. The furniture was still here: our couch, the kitchen table, the bed we'd shared for 11 years. But it all felt hollow. The smell of vanilla candles still lingered in the air. I moved through the rooms, methodically packing what was mine. My father's toolbox from the garage, clothes from the closet, photos of Sarah from the mantle, the paperwork I'd need: tax returns, bank statements, my HVAC, business records. In the kitchen, I found a Valentine's card tucked into a drawer. Deborah had given it to me 2 years ago. To my husband, my partner, my love. I stared at it for a long moment, then set it back in the drawer. Let her find it when she came back. If she ever came back. Elizabeth arrived at noon with the divorce papers. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Deborah and I had eaten breakfast, argued about bills, made plans for vacations we'd never take. "Standard, no-fault dissolution," Elizabeth said, sliding the papers across. "You get 60% of the house equity, $85,000, plus your retirement account and your tools. She keeps the house and the furniture. Clean split." I signed without hesitation. Elizabeth flipped through the pages, checking my initials. Then she paused. She tried to add a clause. "What kind of clause?" "A reconciliation option. Language about reconsidering the divorce after the trial if circumstances changed." Elizabeth pulled a red pen from her briefcase and drew a thick line through the paragraph. I removed it. She has no right to ask for that anymore. I looked at the crossed-out text, Deborah's last attempt at control, her last hope that somehow after everything I might take her back. "Thank you," I said quietly. Elizabeth handed me a copy of the signed papers. "You're free, Thomas. Legally, financially, all of it. She can't touch you anymore." I stood up the papers in my hand and looked around the kitchen one last time. The coffee maker I'd bought on sale at Target. The dish towels Deborah had picked out. The dent in the wall from when Trevor had slammed a door too hard during an argument 3 years ago. All of it gone. I walked to the front door, Elizabeth following. I locked it from the outside, then slid the key under the doormat. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. "You're not keeping the key." "Let her deal with it when she gets out," I said. "If she gets out." We walked to our cars. The December sun was bright and the sky painfully blue. "Where are you going now?" Elizabeth asked. I thought about Eugene's couch, the motel room, the $85,000 waiting in an escrow account. I thought about Sarah driving down this weekend. I thought about the HVAC business I'd built, the clients who still called the life I'd almost lost. "Somewhere new," I said. "Somewhere completely new." Elizabeth smiled. "Good luck, Thomas." "Thank you for everything." She drove away first. I stood there for a moment, looking at the house I'd lived in for 11 years, the house I'd almost died in. Then I got in my car and left. I didn't look back. 3 days after leaving the house, I sold the Ford F-150 to a buyer in Asheville for $9,200. I couldn't stand to look at it anymore. Every time I saw it, I thought about Trevor underneath it, cutting the brake line. I thought about Deborah standing in the doorway, directing him. I thought about the drive I never took, the accident that never happened, the funeral they'd planned. The buyer was a contractor, maybe 40, who needed a work truck for his construction business. He didn't know the history. I didn't tell him. I just signed the title, took the cash, and watched him drive away. It felt like relief, not loss. Relief. With the settlement money, $85,000 from the house and the cash from the truck, I bought a small apartment in Asheville. 2nd floor, 2 bedrooms overlooking the French Broad River. It had a balcony with a view of the water, a kitchen that smelled like fresh paint instead of vanilla candles, and locks that only I had keys to. The first morning I made coffee and stood on the balcony watching the river. The December air was cold, but it was clean, sharp, real. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. I felt older than 58, but I felt safe. Safe enough to breathe without tasting fear. A week after I moved in, I wrote a check for $2,000 to a domestic violence advocacy program in Henderson County. I didn't do it to be a hero. I did it because I kept thinking about people who heard threats in their own homes and had nowhere to go. I sealed the envelope, addressed it, and dropped it in the mailbox at the post office. When I got home, I printed the receipt for my records. My eyes stung as I filed it away. Justice wasn't watching someone die. Justice was watching the truth stand when you couldn't. The healing didn't happen all at once. I started going to a support group for survivors of domestic violence at a community center off Tunnel Road. The first time I walked in, I almost turned around. The room was small folding chairs arranged in a circle, a coffee pot in the corner. I felt out of place, a 58-year-old man surrounded by people who looked like they'd been through wars I couldn't imagine. But then a woman in her 70s spoke. She talked about her husband of 40 years, how he'd controlled everything, the money, the car keys, her friends. How she'd finally left at 73 and never looked back. When she finished, she looked at me. "You trusted your gut," she said. "That's what saved you." I went back the next week, and the week after that. I started seeing a therapist, a man named Dr. Patterson, who had an office near the hospital. He didn't try to fix me. He just helped me process what had happened. "You didn't cause this," he said during one session. "You didn't deserve it, and you did everything right. You documented, you stayed calm, you protected yourself. That's survival. It doesn't feel like survival, I said. It feels like I just got lucky. Luck is part of it, Dr. Patterson admitted. But so is strategy, so is patience. You used the tools you had. Patience is my tool. I thought about my father, about HVAC systems, about waiting for the right moment to act. Maybe I had done everything right. The sentencing updates came through Elizabeth over the following months. Trevor took a plea deal, 18 to 25 years in state prison for attempted murder and conspiracy. No parole eligibility for at least 15 years. Deborah went to trial. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. 15 to 20 years for conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation. Elizabeth called me the day Deborah was sentenced. "It's over," she said, "officially." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." "You did the hard part, Thomas. I just held the paperwork." Glenn Hartman moved out of state. I heard through Elizabeth that he'd relocated to South Carolina, taken a new job, tried to start over. A month after the sentencing, I got a letter from him, short, handwritten, careful. "Mr. Bennett, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I didn't know what she was planning. I should have asked more questions. I should have seen it. I didn't, and you almost died because of my blindness. I hope you're rebuilding. I hope you find peace. Glenn Hartman." I read it once, then folded it and put it in a drawer. I didn't write back. There was nothing to say. Eugene called sometimes. Not often, but enough. Quiet conversations about the weather, about work, about nothing in particular. One evening, he told me he'd visited Trevor in prison. Once. "How was he?" I asked. "Angry," Eugene said. "Still blaming everyone but himself." He paused. I told him I'd pray for him, but I wouldn't be back. "I'm sorry, Eugene." "Don't be," Eugene said. "Some things you can't fix. You just have to let them go." 6 months after the trial, I started dating again. Slowly, carefully. Her name was Margaret. She was 54, a school librarian with gray-streaked hair and a quiet smile. We met at the support group. She understood what it meant to rebuild trust. She understood that some days were harder than others. We went to coffee, then dinner, then a walk along the French Broad River on a spring afternoon when the dogwoods were blooming and the air smelled like rain. "You don't have to rush," she said, when I apologized for being cautious. "I know," I said. "But thank you," she smiled. "One day at a time. One day at a time." And exactly 1 year after that night in the garage, 1 year after I'd overheard Trevor on the phone, 1 year after I'd called the tow truck and started building my case, I sat on my balcony watching the French Broad River catch the morning light. The coffee was hot. The air was cool. The city was waking up around me. I was 59 years old. I was alive. I was free. And for the first time in a long time, I was grateful. 1 year after the garage incident, I stood on my apartment balcony on a cold December morning, holding a warm cup of coffee, watching the French Broad River catch the light. A year ago, I'd been holding a bag of fried chicken, listening to my stepson plan my murder. Today, I was watching the sunrise over the water, planning dinner with Margaret tonight. The apartment felt like home now. Really home. Not the house on Canoga Road where every room had held a lie. This place was mine. Clean. Safe. Built on truth instead of pretense. Margaret and I had been together for 6 months. We hadn't moved in together yet, neither of us was rushing, but she had a drawer in my dresser and a toothbrush by the sink. Small things, normal things, things I'd stopped believing I'd ever have again. Sarah had visited twice. The first time she came alone, just her and me talking for hours on this same balcony. The second time she brought my grandkids, 2 boys, 7 and 9, who ran around the apartment and asked if I had any video games. I didn't. But I took them to the river and we threw rocks and talked about dinosaurs. Normal. Blessedly normal. Eugene called once a month. We didn't talk about Trevor. We talked about the weather, about work, about nothing important. But the calls mattered. They were a reminder that we'd both survived something and we didn't have to carry it alone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You destroyed everything. I stared at it for a long moment. Deborah, Trevor, someone who believed their version of the story, it didn't matter. I deleted it without responding. Real revenge isn't a clever speech or a dramatic punch. It's refusing to play their game anymore. I could have responded. I could have defended myself, explained, argued. But that's what they wanted, engagement, reaction, proof that they still had power over me. So I gave them nothing. Silence is a boundary. Silence is strength. I set the phone down and picked up my coffee. The river kept flowing. The sun kept rising. My life kept moving forward. That was the power they'd never understand. Not rage, not hate, just forward. I thought about the text for another moment, then let it go. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some people aren't worth your energy. My phone buzzed again, this time Sarah. Dad, we're coming next weekend. The boys want to see the river again. You free? I smiled. A real smile. Absolutely. I'll make lunch. You don't have to cook, Dad. I want to. I sent the message and set the phone aside. Later that afternoon, Eugene called. Just checking in, he said. I'm good, I said. Really good. Margaret, she's good too. There was a pause. I'm glad, Thomas. You deserve that. So do you. Eugene didn't respond right away. Then, I'm working on it. We talked for a few more minutes. Nothing heavy, just 2 men who'd been through hell and made it out the other side. When we hung up, I felt lighter. I looked down at my hands. These were the same hands that had trembled in the sedan a year ago, clutching a bag of fried chicken. The same hands that had signed divorce papers, handed evidence to detectives, gripped the witness stand. They were steady now. Not because the fear was gone, but because I knew I could face it. I'd learned something in that garage, something I'd carried with me through every sleepless night, every courtroom hearing, every moment of doubt. Patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. I didn't scream. I didn't swing. I stepped aside and let the truth do the hitting. And I survived. Not just physically. I survived whole enough to build something new. I finished my coffee and looked out over the river. The morning was clear, the air sharp and clean. Somewhere downstream, the city was waking up. People were starting their days, drinking their own coffee, making their own plans. Most of them would never know how close I'd come to not being here. And that was okay. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wasn't trying to inspire anyone. I was just trying to live. But if you take anything from my story, remember this: trust your gut. Not your pride. Not your hope. Not the version of someone you want to believe in. Your gut. And if you hear something in your own home that makes your blood run cold, don't ignore it. Don't convince yourself you misheard. Don't make excuses. Don't wait for more proof. Trust what you know. Document what you can. And get out. Because the difference between surviving and becoming a statistic isn't luck. It's listening to that voice inside you that says something is wrong. I listened, and I'm still here. I set my empty mug on the balcony railing and went inside. Margaret was coming over tonight. Sarah was visiting next weekend. Eugene would call again next month. Life wasn't perfect. It was just life. And that was enough. I'm telling you this story not because I'm special. I'm telling you because I know somewhere out there, someone is standing in their own garage right now, hearing something that makes their stomach drop, wondering if they're crazy. You're not crazy. Trust that instinct. I was 58 years old, married 11 years, living what looked like a normal life. And then, one night holding a bag of fried chicken, I overheard my stepson planning my murder while my wife listened and asked if he was sure. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. So here's what I learned. Not theories, not platitudes. Practical advice from someone who walked through it and came out alive. Don't confront. Strategy beats impulse every time. When I heard Trevor in that garage, every part of me wanted to burst in and demand answers. But I didn't. I backed away. I called a tow truck. I built a case. Confrontation gives them a chance to lie, to gaslight, to turn it around on you. Distance gives you time to think, to document, to plan. Document everything: dates, times, who was where, what was said, text messages, receipts, photos. If it's safe, write it down, save it, back it up. Evidence beats emotion in every courtroom. I had the overheard conversation, the tow receipt, the store footage showing Trevor buying the tubing cutter and Deborah arriving 10 minutes later. The burner phone with months of texts. The security camera video showing the whole thing. Every piece mattered. Without documentation, it would have been my word against theirs, and they would have won. Get help. Tell someone you trust. A friend, a lawyer, the police. Don't carry this alone. I called Eugene. I called Elizabeth. I called Detective Warren. That network saved my life. Not because they fought my battles, but because they reminded me I wasn't alone and gave me the tools to fight smart. If you're in danger, reach out. Domestic violence hotlines, legal aid, victim advocacy programs. They exist because people survive, and survivors help others survive. Patience is a weapon. My father used to say, patience is your tool. Use it first. He was talking about HVAC systems, but it applies to everything. The right time to act isn't always the first time. Wait for proof, wait for allies, then act decisively. I didn't call 911 the night I overheard them. I waited. I gathered evidence. I let them think they were safe. And when I finally moved, I had everything I needed. Patience isn't weakness. It's strategy. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it is wrong. Don't talk yourself out of what you know. Don't let someone gaslight you into doubting your own reality. When I heard Trevor say, funeral, my gut told me to run. I listened. If I'd ignored that instinct, if I'd convinced myself I'd misheard, or that they'd never actually do it, I'd be dead. Your intuition is smarter than your hope. Trust it. If you're in danger right now, act smart. Document evidence. Leave safely. Don't tell them you're leaving until you're already gone. Reach out to people who can help: lawyers, shelters, police. You deserve to survive. If you've already survived, healing isn't linear. There will be hard days. That's normal. Keep walking. Therapy support groups, trusted friends, use every tool you have. You don't have to carry this alone. If you're supporting someone, believe them. Help them document. Don't dismiss gut feelings. Be the person they can trust when their world is falling apart. Here's the final wisdom I'll leave you with. At our age, hell, at any age, wisdom isn't just knowing what's right. It's knowing when something is wrong and having the courage to act on it. I knew something was wrong the second I heard Trevor's voice in that garage, and I acted. Not with rage, not with fear, with strategy. That's what saved me. If this story resonates with you, if it touches your situation or someone you know, share it. Because survival stories aren't just entertainment, they're blueprints. They show you it's possible to make it through and come out the other side. Stay safe, stay smart, and remember, patience is your tool. Use it first. I stood up from the balcony, finished my coffee, and looked at the river one last time. The water kept flowing. So did I. Looking back at my family story, I see a man who almost didn't survive family betrayal. Not from strangers, from the people at my dinner table. Don't be like me, don't ignore warning signs. I almost paid with my life. Here's what this family story taught me. Trust is earned, not assumed. Even in family, especially in family. Your gut knows before your heart accepts. When I heard that conversation, God was warning me. I listened. Thank God I did. Patience saved my life. I didn't react. I planned. I documented. My father's wisdom, patience is your tool, became my survival. You can't fix people who don't want fixing. Deborah and Trevor chose their path. I had to let them go. Family betrayal doesn't define you. What defines you is how you survive it, rebuild, and trust again. I stood in that garage hearing my funeral discussed. God gave me the presence of mind to walk away quietly. God put Eugene Elizabeth and Detective Warren in my path. This family story isn't just mine. It's a warning. It's a blueprint. If something feels wrong in your home, it probably is. Document it. Get help. Act while you can. I survived family betrayal by being smarter than my fear and more patient than my anger. That's how you overcome family betrayal. What would you have done? Have you experienced family betrayal? Share your story in the comments. If this resonated, subscribe and share with someone who needs to hear it. Your story matters. Stay safe, trust God, and remember, patience is your tool.